The movie opens with a man who identifies himself as hikikomori. Hikikomoris represent individuals with extreme introversion, having chosen to self-isolate from the outside world. The opening scene features hikikomori seated on the toilet, amusing himself with a rolled toilet paper. He candidly shares that he spends extended periods in the bathroom, even sleeping there. Unapologetic about his lifestyle, he faces no judgment from others. He deliberately keeps his bathroom door ajar, finding it empowering, and mentions that he generates his most creative ideas in this space. Hikikomori owns a single television in his residence, though it remains unused as he finds TV quickly loses its appeal. Instead, he occupies his time by organizing his belongings and delving into a vast collection of books with a preference for adventure stories. Ironically, despite his literary adventures, he never ventures beyond his home. Having sustained this lifestyle for the past decade, he attributes his ability to do so to financial support from his father. Monthly allowances cover everything from rent to food, enabling him to maintain this secluded existence. For the initial year, accompanying the money was a note, but for the subsequent 9 years, only the funds arrive via mail. Hikikomori has no need to venture outside since everything can be delivered to his doorstep. He possesses a single phone in his residence, exclusively used to place orders for all his necessities. His aversion to interacting with people is so pronounced that during deliveries, he completes the transaction without even glancing at the courier's face. In his earlier, more conventional life, Hikikomori had a regular job, which he detested along with the associated human interactions, traffic, long work hours, and heat. For the past decade, he has successfully avoided exposure to sunlight. Despite this, he finds solace in observing sunlight through his window, particularly relishing the moments as it disappears. Timekeeping appears somewhat superfluous in his world, with days and nights blending seamlessly. He counts the seconds using the wall clock to pass the time before heading to his toilet for sleep, claiming it induces his best dreams, rendering his bed unused for years. A year later, his routines persist unchanged, including his designated pizza time on Saturdays. Like clockwork, he orders pizza and meticulously stacks the boxes to form a wall. On this particular Saturday, as expected, the doorbell rings. Upon opening the door, Hikikomori is surprised to hear a woman's voice. Today's delivery person is apparently a woman, a deviation from the usual routine. He accepts the pizza without casting a glance at her. But while handing over the payment, his gaze inadvertently falls on her thighs. For the first time in 11 years, he looks up. In that very moment, a minor earthquake jolts his house, shaking it thoroughly. The quake subsides after a few seconds, but the delivery girl faints and collapses inside his home. Stunned and unsure of what to do, Hikikomori attempts to communicate with her, but she remains unresponsive. Trying various methods, including spraying water to revive her, proves futile. Initially contemplating ignoring her, he eventually feels compelled to make sure she's okay. Upon closer inspection, he notices tattoos on her arms, each resembling buttons with distinct functions: love, fear, sadness, hysteria, and a headache. Intrigued, he spots a power button tattoo on her thigh and cautiously presses it, prompting her immediate awakening. She inquires if he pressed the power button, and he confirms. After a brief silence, she compliments his pizza box tower and points out a misplacement, which he promptly corrects. As she explores his house, expressing admiration, she comments on the unpleasant odor of her helmet. Swiftly, she returns to her bike and departs. In the ensuing days, Hikikomori finds himself unable to shake thoughts of the girl. Smitten by her, all of his contemplations center around her presence in his life. His well-established routines are thrown into disarray, leaving him unable to eat, sleep, and even disrupting his customary toilet time. One rainy day, overcome by a strong desire to talk to her, he breaks from tradition and orders pizza before the usual Saturday. Minutes later, he hears a knock at the door, only to find an older delivery man. Seeking refuge from the rain, the delivery guy hands him the pizza and proceeds to use Hikikomori's phone to address an employee who has decided to quit on the job. Despite the older man's efforts to persuade the employee to stay, it proves fruitless. Nervously observing the situation, Hikikomori offers the man a glass of water in an attempt to calm him. Seizing the opportunity, he inquires about the delivery girl's whereabouts on that day, only to learn that she quit a few days prior, stating her intention to remain indoors. The frustrated delivery man bemoans the difficulty of finding reliable workers and laments the impact of technology on human connections. As the man leaves, Hikikomori seeks information about the girl's home location. The man provides a general area. That night, Hikikomori wrestles with his thoughts, recognizing that the only way to see her is to find her. However, being an introvert bound to his home, he faces a dilemma. After another sleepless night, he resolves to step out for just one day to locate and meet the girl. He retrieves his long, unused shoes, now home to a spider's nest, blows off the accumulated dust and puts them on. Summoning a burst of self-motivation, he opens his front door wide and takes a hesitant peek outside. However, his overwhelming fears suddenly immobilize him, preventing him from venturing further. Standing at the door for the entire day, he spends the night grappling with indecision. By the following morning, his desire to find the girl outweighs his fear of the outside world. Summoning the courage to take a step, he finally leaves his home. The sunlight proves blinding, but the fresh air feels invigorating. Calculating the girl's potential address, he contemplates transportation methods. Initially opting for a train, the thought of a crowded carriage prompts him to change his mind and consider a bus. Yet the prospect of a bus is equally unsettling. Returning to his front door, he recalls a forgotten bike stashed in the back. However, it's inoperable, rusted, and entwined with plants. Left with no alternative, Hikakomori resigns to traveling on foot and starts running through his deserted neighborhood. Noticing the absence of people and traffic, he reaches the main road, finding it eerily empty. The realization dawns upon him that the fear he harbored doesn't align with reality. Where did all the people he used to fear encountering go? Rusty cars with overgrown plants attest to years of disuse. Amid this desolation, Hikikomori spots the soul-moving entity, a robot transporting a pizza. The robot turns, offering a smile before continuing its journey, prompting a realization for Hikikomori. In this advanced world, technology has rendered humans obsolete. Human contact is replaced by artificial means, and individuals have become akin to house pets, unwilling to venture beyond their comfortable abodes. Although some, like the delivery guy, still roam, the majority have surrendered to complacency, as robots assume all jobs, catering to and entertaining humans. As Hikikomori arrives in the delivery girl's neighborhood, he searches through windows in hopes of finding her. Observing how people lead their lives, he encounters those mirroring his own routine-oriented existence, alongside individuals exploring entertainment through TV. A woman living in isolation for the past 15 years catches his eye, her vacant gaze reflecting a life devoid of joy or sadness. This glimpse into a potential future terrifies him. Continuing down the road, he spots the delivery girl, adding another tattoo to her arm. Greeting her, she promptly closes the window upon seeing him. Desperate, he rushes to her door, pleading for her to open it, but she remains silent. Suddenly, a powerful earthquake shakes the neighborhood, compelling everyone to flee their homes in fear. Hikikomori calls out to the girl, pleading for her to leave her house as the earthquake persists. Panic ensues, with people fleeing buildings, fearing collapse. Objects fall from the sky, narrowly avoiding disaster. Amidst the chaos, the earthquake suddenly ceases, prompting everyone to return home swiftly. The once bustling street clears in an instant, leaving an eerie quiet. Turning towards the sound of the girl, Hikikomori finds her standing behind him, wearing her helmet. Once reassured of each other's safety, she begins to retreat to her house. Determined, he rushes towards her, grasping her arm and imploring her not to return. He explains that she may never emerge if she goes back inside. Despite his pleas, she fights him off and heads back indoors. However, just as she reaches her house, he seizes her again, pressing the love button. They lock eyes as a strong wind envelops them, and another earthquake begins. The movie concludes with this intense moment, leaving the fate of Hikikomori and the girl hanging in the balance.